Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Boardroom Beat with Matrix HR. My name is Smaka, and I'll be introducing everyone. So we have Maddie, who is our host for today, and Claudia, Michelle, and Harry are joining us as well.
Hi. Awesome. Thank you, everyone, for joining another month of the podcast on the Boardroom Beat. This month, we want to speak about a very relevant and important topic these days about mental health in the workplace. We've gathered people from different perspectives and different positions within our office to talk about this topic from a managerial perspective and then also an employer perspective and a more personal perspective as well. So we'll be having a bit of a roundtable talk discussing our different perspectives from, a personal and professional lens. So with that, I just want to segue into our first question, which we'll probably spend quite a bit of time on to develop a lot of the stressors that we and others could identify with in the workplace. So, and I'll open this question up to everyone. What are some common stressors in the workplace that contribute to mental health in employees?
I think expectations can really contribute to it. Different processes, procedures in different companies. A lot of people can get stressed out thinking that they're not doing a good job or feel like they're going to lose their job or be reprimanded for things. So I think standardization can sometimes trigger people, or just being really busy altogether and not being able to do everything the way that they want to do it and take it kind of personally and stuff like that.
Going off of that, I would say like high workload and poor communication from your management and your team members, I think, could lead to a lot of stressors in the workplace as well when you don't feel supported.
Yeah,
they will know, right? So when you don't know if what you are doing is it's the right thing that you are doing, and you don't have that feedback and that support, and you have a deadline and you don't know where to go, or when you have to deal with someone that is not giving you clear expectations of what they want or what they are gonna do when you are on the dark, that's also can be a reason to cause you so much stress.
You feel like alone.
Yeah, like feeling like you have no one to go to. Yeah. You don't have the confidence, or, like Claudia said, like your management, it needs to kind of acknowledge and be kind of open door policy, like make you feel comfortable to come talk to them. Otherwise, you're just piling all that on top of yourself and then ends up blowing up.
Yeah, I'd like to say and add in, like, people can thrive on this, or people can be very stressed out by the dynamic of the current job that you're in. Here at Matrix, we have a different day every day, and we don't know what we're getting into. I myself, I thrive in it because I have a good support and I have a good counterattack to every counter to every situation that comes up here, and we make it through the day. I'd like to say that we figure things out every week, and by having that support and having the employer mitigate that, mitigate the problems in the workplace office, it does help.
Yeah, and in terms of that as management, right? So, and I'm talking about my own problems here, right? So you try to support all the team, but all the problems and all the worries and all the situations are coming to you. So you have to deal with that, and you have to support them, but you have to also make sure that your health is right, and then you go home, and instead of leaving the situation outward, you are still thinking and working, okay, how to do this tomorrow, or this is going to happen if I don't resolve this, or it's a never ending, and that can be also very, very detrimental of your mental health, especially with situations that it comes with financial situations or management situations at the office, like all that, you keep thinking like 24 hours. I there is times that I wake up at 3 and like, oh, I have to do this, I have to do that, or just the overthinking of how we are gonna resolve this, or how can we are gonna do better this is just it's sometimes it's too much.
Yeah, I think it also comes with like for Claudia, I know like you take a lot of pride in what you do, and I think you also take it like it comes onto you personally because you want to do a good job. So you are thinking about it all the time. Like there is no like disconnect. And the kind of work that we do, especially, it's like there's not a whole lot of time to disconnect.
And
Yeah.
with management, you have other people that rely on you all the time, and that
Yeah.
could be like a huge stressor.
It is, yeah. And especially making sure that the other people is performing or is feeling comfortable, or if there is a situation, a personal situation with any of it, I know it's going to affect the whole team. So then you try to coach in that person and resolve it, but still, right? So it goes to your mental health, and not just you as a person. It affects around your family circle, right? So will affect, in this case, my daughters, or like, I don't know, in case of Michelle, maybe her partner or her daughter, same with you. Like, it will affect your immediate circle. It's something that more places don't talk about, but it's happening, right? So, and I know, for example, Timalka that is going to school right now and having all those tests, and then has deadlines at work, deadlines at school, and then she needs to perform both. So it can be very stressful. And then it's on us to understand that you guys are doing your best and try to support as much as we can. But we go to the question of how much will be enough, right? So how much will be on us and how much will be on the individual, right? So
That led me to like huge burnouts, like multiple times per week, and I would feel like I don't belong in the workplace and I don't belong at work. Like I just want to quit everything, and like I really had to just step back and tell myself like, no, I'm doing the best that I can, and I need to stop like telling myself that I'm not doing enough, not doing good.
Yeah. And it can be hard. It can be hard to like convince yourself, especially when you're like a perfectionist to a sense. Like it can be hard to convince yourself that you're doing a good job, which is why I think like management, them acknowledging like, hey, you know, you did a really good job. You did your best. Like celebrate the small wins, like stuff like that is really reassuring, because it's hard when you take on all that stuff and you want to do a really good job and you want to impress people and you want people to be happy with your work and stuff like that. And then, but having someone that you can actually talk to at work, like you can be open with your management team, because like, you know, bringing things home, a lot of people I know, they don't feel comfortable talking to their management team or anyone at work. So they literally get home and they unload all of that on everyone else. It could be friends, family, like a partner, kids, anyone. And then it just spirals into this like huge emotional like vortex that you essentially can't get out of. And so I think, open lines of communication is huge.
I think we were talking about this before the podcast started, but we were talking about triggers and knowing your triggers, and how if somebody, you know, hits your trigger, it's gonna make you like spiral. You know.
Yeah, and that's very true. And like learning your triggers as well. It's obviously in a workplace you have to stay professional and courteous and things like that. But knowing it can be really hard, and you know, because we're all human and we all have a lot going on, and you know, we see what, like for us, for example, we see what all of us are dealing with on a daily basis in the office, but we don't see what everyone's dealing with outside of the office. So it's so much going on, and you just turn into this huge spiral. But you have to, you know, like Maddie mentioned earlier before the podcast, you need to learn how to just like kind of walk away and recognize when you're getting to that point, and then kind of come back to it with a clearer mind. Because I mean, again, we're all humans, so like everything is stressful these days.
Yeah.
For me, if like to get out of that stress is at the moment when you are at the office and it was just becoming a pile of things, and then there is a point that you are going to explode. I have to vent. Usually I vent with the team. No, but I love that, because we have that communication so that we know what is bothering us. We know how can we move forward together, and at least can like mitigate a little bit the burnout that sometimes we do have, right? So, and it happens like the last 2 weeks when I have back to back like the Access Forum and then the Forward Summit, and then interacting with a bunch of people. It's like you keep their energy, right? So then you have to be there, but then you have to also be looking at the office that things are not happening. And usually everything happens when you are not there, right? So.
Yeah, 100%. Well, I'd like to say too that in terms of stressors, depending on your mental health or if you have any existing, you know, mental health diagnoses or conditions, that can also change your view and capacity for work. For example, and I'm very open about this, and I'll be sharing a newsletter with Tomolka about this. I have ADHD, and I have my whole life. And some days I have good days when it comes to focus and overstimulation and all those things. And some days I have really bad ones. If I'm too stressed, if I'm not sleeping, if I'm not eating correctly, if I'm not exercising, not taking care of myself, I will not be in a good way in terms of dealing with that. So sometimes for people with depression or ADHD or anxiety, even having a job that you have to go to consistently at the same time all the time, regardless of how you're doing with your condition or with your diagnosis, is also a stressor. Sometimes I don't sleep all night because I'm way too overstimulated and I can't go to sleep, and I still have to be at work at 8 a.m. It doesn't change because, I am having a bad week or a bad day. I still have to show up and be consistent constantly with my work and with my presence. For example, when we went to the Forward Summit, loved the Forward Summit. It was amazing, but I was having a very hard time with my ADHD when we had to attend. Plus, I was extremely sick. Like, I was sick. I was not feeling well. And you have to still show up and be a certain image that people have of you as a professional person.
Yeah.
So even maintaining the image around yourself can be a workplace stressor. Having to show up in a similar way. Also, on a broad scale of things, we're just coming out of a 3-year-long global pandemic that has changed a lot of things for a lot of people. People are having to come back into the office. People have lost loved ones. People have had economic problems. People have been scared about the pandemic. And we're just kind of jumping back in and moving on. And for some people, that can be a big stressor, coming back into the office, maybe feeling nervous, maybe feeling still destabilized by all of the fear and the rules, all of those things. So I think the global things going around us as well can create stress when we're going into the workplace or into our lives in general.
Yeah, I think the pandemic showed how divided we are.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think, and like Maddie was saying, some days it's hard to just come into work and stay on that schedule. And it's the same thing, like Tomoko has her school, and, Harry has stuff going on in his personal life, and like Claudia has, 2 daughters, and I have my daughter. And so it's like you go home and you have all these other stressors, and you have to be there for other people and take on other people's stress. And then when you come into the office, it's almost like you're switching, but you're switching into just a different stress mode, because now you're taking on other things that are now work related. So it's almost like finding a way to get out of that altogether, because like I myself, I know, like I'll go home and I take on a lot of stuff that happens at home, and with my friends, I'm usually the one that people call and they vent to. And so I take on, and I'm very much so like empath. So I take on like a lot of that stress for them to try and kind of reassure them. And then coming into the office and leading the team, and we have lots of things going on, lots of high volume things. We move very quickly. It can be just a totally different kind of stress. So with like, in the sense of mental health, for me, it's trying to just find just a spot for myself each day to try and just even process my own thoughts, because I'm so busy processing stuff for other people all the time, and trying to keep myself together and keep myself strong for everyone else, that it can be really hard to keep that going. Like it's not sustainable. And that's what a lot of people think, is that they have to keep doing it. They have to keep taking it. And it's not a sustainable thing in the long run. And so finding, like for me, like Claudia, like is a huge outlet for me here. And so having that is probably the only reason I'm able to do what I do, is because I have that open line of communication. Like Claudia was saying, is when she vents to the team, it really helps her. And it helps to the sense that we are all in the same boat, and we all have the same kind of stressors within the office. So it's almost like not even just getting off your chest, but having someone validate that the way you feel is reasonable and like they understand it, makes you feel so much better about it. Because there's nothing worse than venting to somebody. And like, I can vent to people all I want outside of work, but at the end of the day, they don't do my kind of job and they don't know what I'm doing. So they can empathize, but they don't get it. But if I'm venting to one of you guys, it's like, oh my gosh, yeah, no, that's 100% how I felt too. and it's way more validating, and it makes you feel a lot calmer at the end of the day about it.
That's a great segue into a question that we can ask. So, what role can managers and supervisors play in supporting the mental health of their employees?
I think it's a huge communication thing. I think it's very much so putting yourself in their shoes. I mean, we have all, like, in more of a manager position, we've all been in everyone's position before. So being empathetic, being realistic is a huge thing. I think when management over promises or expects more of you than you can give is when you take on a lot of stress because you feel like you're never doing good enough. So I think reassurance, constant communication, and just letting people know and having your team know that if there's something wrong, they can come talk to you, and you're not going to be judgmental. You're not going to, it's not going to be an argument. So you just have that open line of communication where you can open up your mind to realizing that this is how somebody feels and just being supportive to them. Like, there's literally nothing more that you can do than just be there and supportive and listen, because sometimes that's just what people need.
Yeah, no, that's true. You gotta be there just to listen their concerns. So, because we are all humans and we are only that understanding, right? So, like, everybody go through different things, like outward, like Michelle said. But then when you come here and then you have those situations that at some point you try to focus on your work, but then that's still there, and then you said, okay, well, I need to do this. Oh, this is happening with my family, and we have to be supportive as a management. We have to be empathic, right? So with them, and understand that they also have families as we do, and work is work, but it's only a job, right? So, and your mental health is more important. And we do have situations here at the office where we have situations with people that had mental health issues, and then we try to address the best way we can, but sometimes, like, the person needs to recognize that they have that extreme anxiety, or so then if they don't come open to us, we cannot also recommend any other alternatives. So we have a case of one person that was at the naval base, and he was different, right? So that becomes a mental health, but also a safety issue for everyone else around him. He was distracted. He was not himself. He was just going through a difficult part of his life, and his mental health was not the best. So he did reach out to safety there, and then they had to remove him from the site because it was a hazard, right? So for him and for the rest. So when we removed him from the site, and I talked to him, he break up on tears. Like, he was going through a situation that I didn't know, and I have to just sit and listen, even though we were, like, he was in Vancouver, I was here listening over the phone, right? So I'm trying to give him the tools that he needed. So, and maybe some of you don't know, but on our open circle benefit, we have a great tool that you can call, and then you can talk to someone that can help you about those crises on mental health, right? So, like, our role is very important because you never know what he can go through, and if you don't do or give him the right words at that moment, it could lead to something really, really, really disaster.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Like suicide, like so many things. So right now, the person stopped working, so he is doing some treatment. Like, so obviously he was open to it, go back to school, and then he decided to take time just to go through whatever he needs. But he didn't speak up. Like, we have to start looking at the signs that he has at work just to try to help him. But like I said, it is very important that you as a management pick those social cues, because you never know what is going on with a person, and it could be, like Harold said, a disaster, right? So
yeah, I feel like if you feel like you can't talk to somebody and you have these stressors, like, you can feel very alone very quickly.
Isolated.
Completely isolated. You feel like no one understands you, and that's where that stuff kind of escalates, because you feel like you can't. You feel like you're all on your own. You know, like Smokey, you were saying, you feel like you just like, I don't belong. Like I can't do this. And so just having those cues to look for, just open line of communicate, like sit down with them like once a week. Yeah. Make sure you're checking in with them. Yeah. Luckily, you know, here we're very lucky that, you know, if something happens, we are very understanding. Like our management team is very understanding, and just realizing that we are all human. It is a business, but at the end of the day, we're all human. We all have our own lives. And I mean, realistically, if something is going on and you need a day off to just deal with it, like do that, and being comfortable enough to ask for that without thinking that you're going to risk your job or your placement in that company, I think is huge. Because I mean, I don't want somebody that's going to be here that's dealing with something like that. Like it's not good for you. It's not going to be good for the team, because we're all taking on each other's, you know, energies at that point. So I would way rather take on, you know, if Harry needs a day off, I'd rather take on his whole desk and have him go and just decompress and then come back being like feeling a lot better and also feeling supported about it.
Also, just like Claudia said, if you don't feel comfortable talking to your managers or any of your fellow colleagues, you can reach out to helplines. There's helplines in your benefits at companies. There's helplines in just the general public that you can call. And we'll link to some in the description as well that you can reach out to if you're struggling yourself. But yeah, there's so many different options these days that you can get help if you need it.
Mental health is a big burden.
Yeah.
And I can say on upper management, right? So I can see Shannon, so he pushed through, go through, and try to stay on top of things. And sometimes I don't know how he does it, because I get stressed and I get worried about things that are happening that we need to resolve. And then he has to get worried about all of the stuff that I'm worried about it, but also to keep the company floating. And he is responsible for all these employees, right? So the livelihood, exactly. So I mean, the burden on him is huge, and he does it. So
great job.
Yeah, he does a great job.
Yeah, I'd like to say also and add in like managers. I wouldn't want to say like as Claudia's title is as a manager, because it's just more of a leader. You need a leader, not a manager at the workplace, because the two are very different to classify as a person at its higher level. Manager, they keep the business running. A leader keeps the business running, plus tends to personal needs, right? And we're very lucky here at Matrix that we have leaders when it comes to Michelle, when it comes to Claudia, when it comes to Mike, when it comes to Shannon, right? Even when I was a junior recruiter, all the recruiters show us leadership roles inside of them, right? And they help mentor you, right? And the number one skill to help, like your employees is communication and understanding. That's the main foundation, and I think it's the only skill that is needed for when it comes to dealing with workplace stressors and stuff. It's communication. That's a big foundation, and the only skill I think is the solution here.
The big thing too that Claudia touched on there is actually the accessibility as well to mental health services, which is a reason that I love working for Matrix, is because I think it's very unique in the agency market that we provide benefits to our clients, to our field employees, because I have accessed, therapy for my ADHD on many times, and there was times that if I didn't have benefits, I couldn't afford to have treatment, because these are highly professional, highly educated people that you're dealing with, and they have an expensive fee. Like, and then if you're going to the ones that are more accessible to lower incomes, the wait list to get someone to talk to can be weeks. And if you're having a mental health crisis, you maybe don't have that time. And of course, they'll assess, if you're having a crisis, you could be bumped to the top. But even if you just need to debrief and talk to someone, so having the benefits that you can use to pay for these services is huge, because we can talk about policies and all of that, but we all know here that we're not mental health professionals. So we can listen and we can resolve, but we also need to refer. That's a huge part of the mental health journey, is referring people to the specialists that can help them with these things.
And to add in, like there's there's a lot of companies out there. Me and Maddie and Michelle know about this. Is that there's high stress places that you work in, and they don't offer benefits to their employees. Nothing is a bigger slap to the face and a high turnover rate than that. And we're very lucky where we're at right now.
And to me, and again, I'm going to mention Sharon again, but where he's coming from and all the stuff that he leveraged to be where he is it's remarkable. It's amazing, but that he really cares about his people. Like he really breathes what he said, and for him that everyone on the field is accessible. It has benefits, right? So that they have access to benefits. It was a number one thing. So because he went through that himself, and he said that mental health especially it was very, very important. It was a concern for him.
Well, if you can't take care of as well, if you can't afford to take care of your health, then you're going to feel mentally unwell. Like if I need this meds but it's too expensive or whatever, that's going to have a huge impact on your mental health, of that insecurity, that instability. So having the accessibility of having benefits, to me, is a must for these companies. And it's something that you can talk and say, oh, we love mental health, but if you're not contributing to these programs, I would be more speculative of that.
And something that I wanted to talk about as well as mental health is, and I want to mention Madison because I know she is been volunteering with some of non-profit organizations. So, and I will mention the Young Howard Society as well, that going and talking to these people and give them the security that when they go at the outside world, so it's not going to be as hard. It's something very remarkable, and it helps. It helps on the mental health as well. So, and I know you've been in contact with other organizations regarding that. I don't know if you want to.
Yeah. So, one thing that the Matrix has committed to in the last month through my colleague and associate Greg Iksani, who works at the Center for Suicide Prevention, which is obviously a cause that we definitely align ourselves with and recognize as people, but also as a company. We have committed to the Buddy Up program. So it's an initiative by the Center for Suicide Prevention to promote and address men's mental health concerns, specifically around suicide, as unfortunately men commit suicide at the highest rate in Canada and in Alberta, specifically blue collar men. So they're creating the Buddy Up campaign to inform people about what the resources are, how you can get help, what signs you should be looking for if someone stops communicating, if someone stops showing up to work, and just putting out the word to these job sites, to the workplaces that we work with. So we are a Buddy Up champion, and we are doing a lot of the different activities within their campaign. And we're very happy to be in good company with a lot of other amazing organizations, construction and otherwise, that are committed to this. So I have to give them a shout out for allowing us to take part in that and giving us a lot of free resources and swag that we can hand out to our employees. And we're hoping to have, here's, for example, a little sticker, the Buddy Up. We will be providing that to all of our field employees. It also has cards that we will be giving out to all of our employees that have all of the resources on the back, which we will link in the show notes, but also have, some directives on it. And then, of course, just displaying this to help end the stigma, different types of posters around our office, especially in areas where we may be doing onboarding, hiring meetings, all that type of thing. So we are definitely committed to that campaign and are going to see how much we can even expand that within our own population, as this is something that we feel a sense of responsibility as an employer in a blue collar space, employing a lot of men and seeing the very troubling statistics, especially over the last couple of years, how we can increase visibility of this issue and how we can make our employees feel comfortable coming to us and even opening up the conversation. So we'll be handing out the stickers, the cards. We encourage our employees to put it on their hard hats, have a conversation, and keep it in their wallets in case they need a reference for a buddy.
Yeah, it's always coming handy. You
Yes.
never know.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I think another great question we can ask, we've kind of talked about the stressors, what management can do to support. What are some common signs? And of course, we're not mental health professionals, but this is just kind of an open conversation. What are some common signs of mental health crisis or issues that you can see in your coworkers, and how do you address it while respecting their privacy?
I like to say like due to every job that I've been to, it's the performance is great in the beginning because people want to have a job and they're happy. Let's just say they're a new person, they finally got the job, they show up constantly, but then you start to notice that they get late, they are absent sometimes without communication, and then when they're at work, their performance goes down significantly. I'm not saying like a little bit of a dip. I'm saying significant where they don't get along. They're very silent with the job place. I'm not saying that silence is bad, but when it's dead silence, and you can see them having getting like their personality changes as well. That's a good sign that there is a workplace stressor that is compressing whatever time they have here in the office, because 8 hours, 8 hours a day, and let's just say they're only serving 2 hours really working. It's a good indicator that something's behind that. Um, uh, I've seen a lot. I've been in a warehouse. I've been volunteering at a fire department. I've always seen this. There's this constant visual of a burnout going on. Right, and even in a like in corporate and in an office, people think that if you sit down in a chair and a laptop or a computer right in front of you, it's not really a hard job. It is.
Yeah.
It is mentally.
Yeah, I think when things become a pattern, and that's when it's kind of cause for concern.
Yeah.
Because I mean, everyone's gonna have bad days here and there where we're tired. You know, we didn't sleep. We have something going on. We don't feel great. Whatever that may be. But once it becomes something that you're noticing, I think that's when that should be raising a flag 100%. From like a leader point of view, I think knowing your team, so you know their personality, and you know, for example, like Maddie, like I know when you are really zoning into something, you'll close your door and get quiet. And that's just how you operate. For like Harry, I know his door's usually always open, and he can, wants to communicate and talk about things, and before he goes to the next step. So like if he was starting to do what you do, it's out of his personality, and I would notice that and be like, okay, that's something to kind of keep an eye on. So I think just being observant and being present is huge. Whether you're an employee or you are a leader of some kind, just because you have to, like, everyone wants to feel like somebody has your back. And so I think that just being aware of your surroundings and not putting yourself into that kind of glass cage where you're only looking at yourself and your desk and all that kind of stuff. And then again, like I said, everyone has bad days. So here and there is, I don't think that's anything that you have to be like, jumping on them to be like, hey, are you okay? Kind of thing. But when it becomes a pattern and you can, that this is not their personality or this is not how they operate. I think that's when you can kind of gradually talk to them without kind of going, like I wouldn't go into your office and close the door and be like, what's up? Because I don't want to step on your toes and I don't want to make you more uncomfortable. But it would be a, hey, how are things going? Let me know if you need anything. Like just slowly kind of getting yourself into the situation as well to then make them feel more comfortable to kind of open up to you. I feel like just storming in and being like, okay, tell me what's going on. Like that's not a way that anyone's going to really tell you what's happening. Yeah. So I think just keeping an eye on it, noticing those flags and those cues to pick up on, and then slowly just reminding them that you're there. Let me know. And just maybe it may be taking some things off their desk just to lessen the stress.
Yeah, like
it might be something like that. So like little things like that, but it's gradual.
A gradual empath. That's what she explained.
Yeah, is because that's how they're going to feel more comfortable and want to open up.
Definitely. Well, and unfortunately, and I think a great resource is the Center for Suicide Prevention on a more, serious crisis
So
case. Unfortunately, and I'm very open about this as well, I did lose two friends in 2021 to suicide, unfortunately. And there were no signs ahead of time to indicate that they would be, unfortunately dying by suicide. However, there are some signs that someone may be thinking about suicide, which unfortunately, you know what, and it's a word that people don't like to hear. But I think in a mental health podcast is something that we have to talk about because it's a crisis in our province. And I'm from a small town, and I'm telling you, I've lost a ton of classmates since graduating, and I'm only 25 years old. So I think it's something that employers, you spend a lot of your life, like most of your life at work. So I think it's something employers need to talk about. They need to say the word, and they need to see what are the signs, like someone withdrawing a lot, someone making self-deprecating comments, someone making jokes about suicide and things like that. It's cause for questioning, someone saying, well, no one cares about me anyway.
Oh,
You hear that on the job site.
Yeah.
You're with a buddy and you're saying, hey, do you want to go for lunch? And who would want to have me come for lunch? Like, no one cares. Those are things or someone's making a joke. Oh, what if I just disappeared?
yeah.
I know that we oftentimes think, oh, that person just has a dark sense of humor, or that person is just joking, but it's always cause to prick your ears up and say, hey, Jim, what did you mean by that? Like, are you okay? And that's why we're going to have these cards out to all of our workers, because sometimes it's often the casual conversations where these things start coming out, or where people start making plans for these types of things. So we will be giving these out to all of our workers so that if they hear these conversations going on site, because they'll probably say it to someone that they're more comfortable with. They can say, hey, I'm a little worried about you, buddy. I'm going to give you this card. I think that we can call this line together, and then calling us as the employers, because it really is a health and safety concern, and saying, hey, I'm a little bit concerned about XYZ. I think they've made some comments that are a little bit troubling. What do I do from here? And we will have all the resources as champions. So I wanted to bring it up because it's a topic that people, like I said, the word suicide is a difficult one to hear, and one that people don't want to until it comes into your life, and
Also,
you have to hear it.
Yeah. Also, I just want to add to that, like, when I was younger, I went through like severe depression, and I was very alone, and I was isolating myself from everyone. And it just took that one person who said, hey, like, I'm going to hold your hand. Like, come and do this with me.
Yeah.
Let's take some time and do something that we both like to do. And you don't want to do it. You just like, what's the point? And same as in a workplace, like you feel like, what's the point of me doing this one project? What's the point of me, trying to reach out to someone? Like, what's the point? But you have to understand that there's people out there in the world that cares about you and want to be here. Even though it feels like you're alone, like there are someone in your life or not in your life yet who will care about you, who do care about you. And you just have to like realize that and be strong and reach. It's going to be uncomfortable, but you have to reach out and you have to ask for help.
Absolutely. And I think I speak for all of us with our field employees that any which one of us in this office would rather you reach out to us and say, I'm having a hard time, than us get a call that you're not going to be back at work, or you're not okay, or something has happened to you.
Yeah.
So we encourage our workers to reach out to us if you do have a concern, or you're having a crisis, or you're noticing these things, because I will 100% always want to hear from you and have that conversation, regardless of how busy we are or what we're doing, rather than hear devastating news about you or about a situation that you've been in, or unfortunately there's that word again about suicide. but it's something we have to address in our industry, as unfortunately men are leading the way in this troubling statistic. And to be able to break that boundary, we have to have difficult conversations. And I think everyone would agree that we want to hear from you, and we really do care about your well-being, safety wise, as we did on the last podcast, but also in your personal well-being, and we could be a resource to guide you in the right direction.
I think from like Michelle, if you want to speak on this, in a manager's perspective, if someone went to you and say, "Hey, I need help, I'm struggling," what would you, as an employer, as a manager, do?
I think that's part of being like a leader, manager, employer, is being the person that they can come to say that, and you're going to drop everything and say, okay, what can we do to fix this? What are you comfortable with? Helping them, no, like you said, holding their hand, being like, okay, you're not alone in it, and helping them to get the resources that maybe they're not comfortable asking for, or they don't even know that they have. So, just letting them know that you're there for support, that you understand it, that they can come talk to you, and just saying, let's do that. Like, let's fix this together because you're not alone. Like, really reassuring that person is valued, that they're cared about, that you will drop everything. Like, if I was to go to Claudia and say, I need help, I know she would drop everything that she was doing at that moment to help me. So
That's
I think that's really big.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Also, can I just go back to the stressors in a workplace? I think as women, when we have like our menstrual cycles and stuff, we
Harry can't chime in on this one.
No, it's keep going. I'll add it now.
We're very emotional.
Yeah.
Whether it is before, during, or after. And I think, like, as women, like, we understand that we are like, we help each other through it, but as like men in the workplace doesn't really understand, like, how do you guys deal with like going through that emotional turmoil, like everyone.
This is where I'll add in. So there's a lot of women in my life, and I work in an office that's predominantly women. That is true,
Yeah.
right? I'm in an industry where where it has a feminine quality of looking after a person, that nurturing that person, helping and supporting that person, because that's much more, I think, in my personal view, a more feminine quality in workplaces to support someone and understand them. Whereas the typical stereotypical masculine idea is you care about not people, you care about things. You want to work on machinery, you want to help build stuff, right? Stuff. That's a stereotypical thing. So I'm just working off of the stereotypical feminine qualities of this workplace where we support and understand people. When it comes to working around a lot of women in the office and having only women in my life, in my personal life, outside work, yes, you get to see the cycle, or you get to see the week. In my head, I nickname it Shark Week because women turn from angels to sharks.
Oh my goodness.
Right? But it's something that you have to deal with because there's a lot of men that don't understand, that just don't understand what's going on. It may seem like it's crazy to them, but you have to understand the feminine side of humanity. That's just how it is, and they're going through biologically something that you will never understand. And you just have to take, like, the only solution is to take a step back, let them cool off. They do that. They take a step back and cool off, and then they go back to their normal selves for a bit. Because it's just, you cannot control it. If it's something out of your control, it's not normal, right? If it's something out of your control, you have to understand that women have to go through this stuff where you will never understand, and they will not act themselves, and just take a step back, let them cool, right? That's all. You cannot, if you fight back, that's where the problem is. and if you gaslight them, that's where the problem is, right? If you just have to take a step back and be obedient during that
Oh, okay.
That's the only solution I've found.
Understanding.
Understand.
Is a better
Obe-
word.
just take it, even if it's
good.
getting heightened, just be a little bit obedient and just say okay
Okay.
to them.
Yeah, I think
That's the
like,
solution I found.
for me, it's I have just I've learned to like I know when I'm being irrational, and like I know when I'm being too emotional, and so for me, I'll communicate that. Like I could be super emotional with you, Maddie, and I'll be like, sorry, but like I can't control this right now.
Yeah.
And so I'm just communicating that, and I've done that, like, to friends outside of work if I'm being irrational, and they'll be like, what is wrong with you? I'm like, I know I'm being crazy right now. I know. I can't control it. Just like ride this wave with me and like it'll be over. So it's one of those things where it's like you can't always control it. It is just all these emotions. And like we were talking about before the podcast, as like females in general are more emotionally wired. And then we also have that every, 3 weeks or 4 weeks or whatever it may be, that heightens everything. And then men are more logical thinkers, generally speaking. And so, like Harry was saying, just be understanding, not obedient. Understanding is that what I'll go with.
I would love to add on to the obedient word, because it's just in my household, maybe even my culture, like we're very submissive. Like when it comes to the women in our culture, we're very. I don't know if it's the understanding part or if we want to avoid a fight, but we just want to be submissive and just let it be. And as Michelle said, we ride that wave, right? We ride that wave when we're taking a step back and letting them be who they are right now.
I think what Harry tried to say is just give them their space.
Yes.
The understanding.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and like as women, it is, and we talked about this on our podcast about International Women's Day. I think that it can impact our mental health because we're cyclical beings, and there are a lot of emotions and problems and physical pain that comes with that scenario. Personally, I don't apologize for anything surrounding that, about being overly emotional, about being illogical, because that is a part of our unique experience. But what I would say is understanding your limits around this time. I think that in our culture and in a workplace culture, we expect people, like we've said about mental health, to be at their 100% all the time. But if you're going through something physically and mentally, not only this, but if you're unwell, if you're physically ill, you can burn yourself out by doing more than you're able to do at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a huge energetic demand on women, right? So take a step back, understand what you can handle. For me, during that time, I know that I'm not as social as I usually am. So I'm not booking 1,000 meetings every single day, because I know I'm not going to show up as my best self on those days, especially, the beginning. So I make sure that I will do a lot of my data entry and my administrative work during that time, because I'm okay to kind of turn inwards, do my work, and go home and rest. And then at other times, I know I'm more social, I'm more vivid, and all of those things. So be understanding of yourself and allow yourself the grace to schedule your life around how you're physically feeling. You don't have to push yourself to the limit, because when we do that, we're not showing up for ourselves, and we're not showing up as our best selves. And I will not apologize for being a woman and having to sometimes adapt myself. I won't apologize for it, and I'm going to continue to do that.
I think that we as a woman go through a lot of psychological changes when we have our peaks on our menstrual cycle, and then when we go to menopause and so on.
Mm-hmm.
So there is so many hormonal changes that happen in our life that it make us have a way to be some days and moody some others, but we also have to have respect for others, right? So because those are our changes, and as much as we can control it, we also have to be respectful to others, right?
Always.
So, and like Harry said, and try to have a space in between,
Yeah.
just because we know that we are not going to be ourselves those days. So
exactly, don't schedule yourself with a ton of meetings and all those things, because you may be, like we've talked about our triggers, you may be more, and not all women, like we gotta preface that as well. Like, not all women experience the same things. We're not a, just one group. We have a lot of different specifications, or some of us do not experience menstrual cycles, all of those things. But I think at the end of the day, whether you're a woman or a man, it's about understanding your personal limits and being able to respect that and work within it, because you have to be self-aware about what you can handle, regardless of what's going on in your life and the conditions surrounding it, and be able to work within that. And if you need to, discuss that with your employer and say, you know what, this week I know I'm not going to be the best that I can be. I'm really ill, like maybe you have a cold, or maybe this is going on, or whatever. How can I adapt my schedule to still feel successful, but not push myself to the limit? Because when we all push ourselves to the limit, there's a breaking point, and that can impact the whole team, the whole operation.
And to add in also, just at the end of the day, don't shove it into the girl's face saying that, hey, you're just on your period.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Don't. That's a form of belittling.
Well, that's
a
also
form of belittling,
like
and
workplace harassment.
That's harassment. I'm just letting you guys know that the guys that are probably going to listen, just never shove that in a woman's face.
Well, that's not just harassment; it's respect, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
so,
also
yeah.
There's so many L's. There's so many losses with that.
Yeah.
Also, our women, we're like women dominant in this company, but for other companies that don't have like a manager that is a woman that they can go to and say, hey, I'm having a problem, like, can we find a solution around this? If there's only like managers that are men, I think those men need to take responsibility and educate themselves and how to respond and how to not be, how do you say it, like
condescending,
Yeah,
or belittling,
Yeah.
or just ignorant.
Ignorant.
Yeah, definitely. I think the last segment of that question, and we're coming to the end of our podcast, is how can we address these concerns with our employees or colleagues? Because it's not just managers that need to support each other; it's also the employees. Like I said, sometimes it'll be your site level colleague that you'll reveal the truth to, that can support you. How can we address these concerns while also respecting the person's privacy? Because that can be a huge reason that people don't talk about these things.
I think that you have to build that rapport with your colleague, right? So I wouldn't go and ask, well, at this office, I believe we have a great rapport with each other. I can't go and talk to Michelle about anything. And same with Madison or Timalka, right? So, but as colleagues, you have to build that rapport, right? So with your coworker, and make sure that at least you can address the conversation with limit on respect, or what, say, hey, I see you different lately. If there's anything I can help you with, if you want to talk to. So just start the conversation. So might be leading to something, but understanding the cues as well of your colleagues, right? Because Harry mentioned they can change drastically, and then you have to be able to notice those changes and try to offer the help. And if they don't, so just try to be respectful. Said, okay, so well, those are some resources, or address to your manager. I'm concerned about my colleague. I see this behavior or these changes, and then we'll be up to us to go and address that within the work environment, right? So
Yeah. I feel like being open to discussion, because more times than not, people are going to tell you things just while you're talking.
Yeah.
And showing a general interest in that person, because a lot of people, when they don't talk to you, they think, oh, they're not going to care. So showing an actual genuine interest in somebody, like even just being like, hey, how's your weekend, or how's the kids, or things like that, they're going to you're going to hear about their problems just in the middle of a normal conversation, and it's just going to fluidly come up, and it's not going to feel like you poked and prodded it out of them, or they had to say it to you. So I think just having that fluidity and genuine human interest in each other outside of just work stuff, I think is a huge thing, because that's usually, like, I know with people that I've talked to, and both in work and outside of work, is a lot of time when you hear those things, it's not like they were coming to you with that problem. They were in the middle of talking about something else, and you were showing interest, and it became a fluent conversation, and it just kind of led into, oh, I've been having this issue.
Yeah.
And then also the fact that the always being open is big, because there's nothing worse than you go to talk to somebody about something and they take it the wrong way, or they close you off, or they dismiss you, or they snap at you. Like, you're never going to want to go to that person again. So I think keeping it very open and positive and just fluid, and just make sure that it's a genuine human connection, because we are all human. And, like Tamaka was saying, is just be kind to yourself and know your limits, and know that you're not alone, and know that you can talk to people, and people genuinely do care about you.
And in a workplace, I think we all try to strive to be perfect in a way. Like, we strive to have a smile on our face, to do our work. And sometimes it feels like you're alone in the struggle. And it's not. You're not alone. Like, people in your same office, like right beside you, could be going through the same exact thing.
Yeah.
You just really have to reach out and say, hey.
And realize it's not just you. Like, I've never met anyone that is just 100% positive, perfect, happy, nothing going on all the time. Never. Yeah. Like, it is always something, no matter what it is. And it could be something that affects Maddie different than it would affect you, Tamaka. So it's like, someone is always going through something. So you literally are not alone. You might feel like you are, but I think keeping that open line of communication and trust in people, especially the people that you work with, or the people that, are outside of work, and the people that you surround yourself with, just having that trust and open line of communication is huge.
Yeah. And like, as Michelle's been trying to explain, is that gradual empathic path of putting yourself in there, taking in their problems slowly. It really does go a long way, because I lost my father while I was in an agency before, and they gave me 14 days off, right? 2 weeks off or more, but I agreed with the 14 days off. But people in the agency that I worked in were my personal friends as well. So they took me out. They took me. When they did take me out, it distracted me from whatever occurred in my life, and then in the morning, I plan for my dad's process, right? But in the nighttime, or in the afternoons, I'd be out playing sports. I'd be going to bars, but alcohol is not the solution. I'm just saying that it distracted me. And that way, after my 14 days were done, I felt like a huge burden was off. Like, them being like a personal friend to me was more rewarding than just getting a 14 days off alone, probably reading, probably gaming, probably distracting myself by myself. They showed me that people are there for you, right? So it's a huge support I know that maybe people will get along with you during your employment, right? But it's a huge boon if you are friends with that person on a personal level, at the very get-go when they first get hired.
And just from an HR perspective, I mean, pretty simply, like, when you come to a manager or an HR representative, what you say in that room is confidential. And if people find out about your mental health crisis and you have disclosed that to a manager or an HR person, that is a serious violation of the promises they have made in their professional position. So these are not topics for gossip. These are not things that will be promoted or discussed among other employees, unless it is having to be escalated because there's a concern about your mental well-being and health. Then a colleague may have to escalate that to a higher level. But as HR professionals, we are sworn to a certain level of confidentiality and privacy. So you are safe to disclose those things with us. And we may have to suggest or take things from another way, or we'll invite you to connect. And if you're ready at that time, that's fantastic. If you're not, the door is still open. It doesn't shut just because you're not ready at that moment to have a conversation. So, but we're getting close to the end of our podcast here, an hour. I want to thank everyone in the room today for a very open, transparent conversation, and just kind of a casual yet informative, I think, conversation around the topics of mental health. We will be posting links to different resources in the chat. Also, I want to thank you again, the Center for Suicide Prevention, for allowing us to be a Buddy Up champion. We're excited to move forward and promote the program even more within our organization. So thank you so much for listening, everyone. Until next month, be well.
Thank you.